Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to come at you with another episode of SFE Stories. Today, I'm spending the afternoon with my good friend, 2015 National Pan-Hellenic Council President, Amber Carpenter. Welcome, Amber. I'm so glad to see you. So happy to have you back here to share some wisdom with us. Why don't you start the people off with just giving a brief introduction? Who are you? What's your story? What are you doing now since graduation? Tell us what's going on.
Okay, I love the energy, Billy. So hi, everyone. I'm Amber Carpenter. I graduated Iowa State in 2016 with a degree in biology. After that, I went to law school, and now I am an intellectual property attorney. At Iowa State, I pledged the amazing sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Phi Chapter. I was Fall 13, Centennial Line, amazing group of girls, and I love my Delta.
Mm-hmm. You know, I will never forget that harmony.
Oh,
we all came down from the back, brought me to tears.
Yes.
Yes, that should be standard. Everybody should have to do a 3-part harmony. Absolutely. As a part of a new member show. I don't care if you're a solo. You better find a way.
There's usually at least one person who can sing per line. Like I feel like that's our requirements in interviews. You know, we make you sing. No, we don't do that.
We gotta find somebody. Yeah, awesome. What's it like being a lawyer?
Difficult. Even this morning, I was told that some really hard work that I did on a brief has to be completely redone in a matter of hours. And so it is really difficult, but it's also really rewarding because you get to use so many different skills in one place, from like communication to issue spotting to like arguing and learning how to deal with conflict. Like I literally do all those things in one day, which makes my job a little fun.
Yeah. No, I know, Amber, from our conversations and our experience together, that like being a lawyer wasn't your dream, right? Like it's not like you woke up, you know, at 5 years old and was like, I'm gonna be a lawyer one day, and you've always been working to that. How'd you get there? Like what was the path that like made you go into law, that found that as a new passion and made that a life choice for you?
Yeah, great question. So my degree is in biology. I always thought I wanted to go to medical school. That was kind of always my path. In high school, I took like AP Chem and bio. Like I really thought that this was going to be it. My summer going into junior year of college, I had an internship, and those who are applying to medical school know that you have to have a certain amount of hours in a hospital to apply. Most programs require that. And so I was just getting in my little internship hours, and I had a really great internship also working with another soror who is a psychiatrist, or I'm sorry, what was she? I don't even remember what type of doctor she was. But anyways, I basically just like followed her around all day, and I realized that I hate being in hospitals. I realized that I can't handle the death. I realized that I don't like the way that doctors have to almost change themselves so that they don't bring home the trauma. And I'm the type of person where I put my heart into my work. And so it's really hard for me to make that distinction. And I don't want to ever have to have that distinction in my life. I want to be able to put my heart into something and saw death. And it like fazed nobody. Like everybody was cool. Everybody was walking around. Everybody was acting like nothing happened. And I'm literally in the back of the room, in the operating room, crying. My mask is like wet because it was just a really traumatic experience for me. And so I realized that everyone kind of, you know, you don't have the ability or the privilege to take in that death and kind of internalize it, because if you did, then you would be miserable for the rest of your life. And then also the smells were just a lot. I remember writing that in my law school application, that, you know, the smells and the colors and the lighting, like everything together was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So then I came back to Iowa State, tried to figure out what I was going to do, talk to some people. With everything going on with like Trayvon Martin at the time, lots of things going on. And I especially within the Black community. And I thought that I could enact a lot of change. And I was thinking maybe policy wise. So I was looking at policy programs and master's programs. And one of my friends was like, why are you looking at policy master's programs when you can just go to law school and do the exact same thing and be a lawyer? And so I kind of thought that's what I was going to do. I thought I was going to do more policy. I didn't really think that I would be in the courtroom type of thing. And then I came to law school and it all changed. And somehow I'm doing patents, trademarks, and copyrights right now. So I think that goes to show that like your path might be something in the beginning. However, just go with the flow, and you know, God or whatever being that you believe in, the spirits are going to bring you to where you need to be.
Shout out to that friend, right? That just pointed you in the right direction.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of people told me that I should be a lawyer actually too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, you know, I'm familiar that quite a few Black people go to law school, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure that I know that a lot of Black folks do intellectual property law.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? Is that common? Is that uncommon?
Yeah. So 1.9% of IP attorneys are Black.
Wow.
Yeah, 1.9% of IP attorneys at large law firms in the United States are Black. And so I'm happy to be part of that statistic. But I'm also cognizant on the need to bring more folks in. And I think a huge issue with the lack of specifically patent Black attorneys is the fact that a lot of Black folks don't have science degrees. And in order to do most of IP, you can still do trademarks and copyrights if you don't have a science degree, but a lot of places want you to have one, even if you're doing that primarily. So in order to get into that patent sphere, you have to have that science degree. And so that's one hurdle. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then hurdle number 2 is getting into law school, finishing the program, passing the bar. And hurdle number 3 is that people don't know is that you have to take an additional bar to be a patent attorney. It's called the patent bar. And there's just, as you can see, there's so many hurdles to get to that point. So it is understandable on why there's less of us here. But I think that I would not say a lot, but there's at least a few of the firms here in Chicago have lots of programs to try to get more students of color in because they see that there's a deficit. And I do appreciate that. Like, for example, we work with local high schools and more of like tutoring with science and math and things like that. But that, for example, is a good way to kind of funnel more students into the science world, which would eventually funnel them into IP.
Mm-hmm. And now when you say a science degree, because I've just been thinking about this, how do we help people understand this, right? So you say science degree, are you talking about a Bachelor of Science in whatever you want? Or are you talking about like hard sciences, biology, chemistry, physics?
Yeah, so they do kind of use those terms, the hard sciences and the soft sciences. Mm-hmm. And so you have to have a hard science degree. So usually the tops are engineering. If you have an engineering degree, you don't get a job, period. So engineers are like money. So you're going to get a job if you want to go to law school and you're an engineer. Engineer is the big one. I would say under that is chemistry and biology. But a lot of IP attorneys are engineers. And then a few of us are chemists and a few of us are biologists. With chemistry and biology, sometimes it's a little elitist. And they want you to have a master's degree or a PhD in those programs, which I do not. And I made it. So just be aware of that it might be a little bit more difficult if you don't have a master's or a PhD in either chemistry or biology. But either way, still apply. I made it, so you can too.
Now I'm gonna come back to this, but I want to ask a different question first before I come back to this to make another point. But my question is, so like, what was it for you when you were in law school that you're like, oh, this type of law, that's where I want to be now. Like now I know where I want to go.
Another woman of color. I swear, women of color will change your life. Another woman of color. So my first law school professor, her name is Cynthia Ho, and she was my civil procedure law professor. And she saw that my background is in biology, but she knew that I was interested. And at that point in time, I was working at a legal aid center here called Cabrini Green Legal Aid, and I was doing expungement and sealing work of criminal records. And that still is one of my big passions is criminal justice reform. And so she knew I was doing that, and she knew that I was applying to jobs in the criminal justice sphere. And she just was like, you know, you have this degree and you can really make some money if you do IP law. And so I didn't even know what a patent was. I mean, I knew what a patent was, but I didn't really know the difference between patents, trademarks, and copyrights. I didn't really know any of that. And so she kind of opened my eyes to it. And I ended up applying to one job out of like 6 different other ones, and I happened to get the IP one. And so I was like, all right, God is telling me that I got to do this for a little bit. And so I ended up doing that during the summers of my law school career. Every summer I did another different IP job at a different firm. And I realized, like, you know, I could do this for a little bit. I mean, it's not like my total jam, but I do really appreciate like the science and beauty of innovation and engineering, and being able to have like a hand in that is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So it makes me think back to, as we think about students who may not know what they're looking for, you know, as far as a career or opportunities, or maybe they don't know exactly what they want to do for law school. Like, one, think about a degree in some type of science. It doesn't mean that's the only path to get there, obviously, but like certainly having a degree in science is going to help you there. And then we need mentors, right? We need more folks to mentor other people, because just as you alluded to, you know, you had this mentor when you went to law school who then was like, oh no, here's this opportunity. This would fit your passions, your interests, and give you that opportunity. So I love all of that for you. Was having Black faculty in law school important to you?
It was, and I didn't have much. You know what? Actually, I did have Black faculty. So I think every year I had at least one Black instructor of some sort. And that was really important to me. However, the instructors that I had that are Black weren't teaching the subjects that really, I mean, all subjects impact Black people, but they really weren't teaching those like juicy subjects like civil, like constitutional law or criminal law. They were teaching contracts or evidence. And so I was having mostly white male professors tell me about my Blackness, and that, you know, at one point I wasn't able to vote, and that at one point I was considered 1/3 of a citizen, and at one point X, Y, and Z is in the Constitution, right? So it is kind of an interesting perspective to kind of have like a white male kind of explain that to you. But one thing about, as we both know, like most higher education centers are on the liberal side of the sphere, and so it's not like I was experiencing like, you know, a bunch of like super conservatives. And I mean, of course that happened with the students and things like that, but at least teachers wise, you know, they were kind of playing both sides, which was helpful, even though it was coming from a mouthpiece that didn't really look like me.
Sure. Yeah, you know, it's interesting for me. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but my goal was to go to law school.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So my undergraduate degree is in political science, and I actually wanted to do criminal law. I wanted to do juvenile law. So I wanted to work. I grew up in the state of Virginia, and there's a high recidivism rate of youth who, you know, commit crimes as juveniles and just continue to find themselves in the system. And so one of the things I wanted to advocate for was rehabilitation programs and other opportunities for advocacy for kids to find a different path. And, you know, life has changed for many of us in many different ways. I also had a mentor that was like, you know what, Billy, like, here's this other place you could go and these other things you could do. And sometimes I joke that that's still the work that I'm doing, right, with fraternities and sororities. So we're working on rehabilitation, right? We can make mistakes and do things different, but we can learn from that, and we can grow and become better. But one of the things that I've learned that as I've gotten older is, if I were to go to college today, I would be really intentional about looking for an institution that had diverse faculty and staff. You know, I went to college to play sports. There's no other way to say that. Like I chose a school I went to because they said I could play 2 sports.
Yes, hashtag CrossFit.
Right. Yes, absolutely. That's why I went to college, was to be an athlete. But now that I'm a little bit older and I hope to think wiser, you know, I would love to immerse myself in coursework that had divergent thoughts and divergent people, because I feel like that's where I've grown the best. Absolutely. And even as you talked about being in law school, you know, having super conservatives in your class and also some liberals in the class, and that would be ideal to me. Like I want to, let's see an argument, right? Like, and not an argument, just an argument, but like, let me really like see how people think. Let me see your true belief, and let's debate that. Let's hash that out, because I want to be moved. There's some things that I believe strongly in. Like, my mother is the best person in the world. Like, you're not going to win that argument against me.
Right.
But there's a lot of other things that I think I could be moved on, right? When you think about something like food stamps, right? Or food assistance programs, right? I believe we should have them, right? But I don't know that I feel so strongly in that program that, like, I believe there should be a limit. Or there should be a limit, or like you should have to have an application for a job to get that. Like, so I think there's so many places where like I could be moved on it like that, and I don't want to redo college, but I would love to redo college. In that experience where like every day I was being challenged in my own beliefs to think about things. So.
Yeah, and I think that law school will give you that. But I will say, like, again, Loyola is like this. I went to law school at Loyola University in Chicago, and Loyola is this like Jesuit school who is really big on like altruism and giving back to the community. And so that's kind of the brand of the school. And so that brand is going to match the students into some capacity, right? Of course, that's going to be a bell curve, right? But a majority of those students are going to fit that brand, which makes the law school experience really great. And I will say that I was honestly challenged more at Iowa State on my beliefs, on what I felt, than I was in a classroom at Loyola. Just because I will say the stats may have been like 65% of people in my class felt the same way that I did, versus I've been in classrooms where I know that only 30% of the class felt the way I did at Iowa State. So I think a lot of that, of course, is geography, being in the city versus being in the middle of Ames, Iowa. But I actually was almost challenged more at Iowa State.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I did not go to Iowa State for undergrad, but I actually also went to a Jesuit school for my master's degree.
Oh,
I went to Gonzaga. Spokane, Washington, and I would agree the same. I think a lot of people that were in the program with me thought similarly. In general, I felt like what that did for me more than anything is that it gave me space to be reflective and become more sure in what I did believe in that space.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think balance of both is definitely great. So
100%.
Yeah. So let's talk about Iowa State. Let's talk about your experience here. I want to know about Phi Chapter. I want to know about that experience and Phi Chapter that you cannot forget. What's that one story, that one time, that one night, that one thing that you're like, this is an appropriate story to share, and it's a memory that sticks with you that you love?
So many. This is probably something I should have prepped for. I will say the memory that literally I talk to my line sisters and some of my neos about all the time is that we were driving to Iowa City for Delta Chapter. Delta Chapter is the Delta Sigma Theta Chapter at University of Iowa. And we were driving to see a probate. And this, like that 3-hour, however long, 2-hour drive from, we picked up one of my line sisters in Des Moines, from Des Moines to University of Iowa was so much fun. Like being in the car, listening to Rihanna's Anti album, jamming it, like laughing at some of the racist bumper stickers we were seeing on the road. Like it was just so much fun. And like that album always reminds me of that small experience. And so it's like, yes, we have so many great experiences that have to do with like the sorority and everything like that, of course, with official events and things like that. But some of the best experience I had were just riding in a car with my line sisters, jamming to music and just being around like amazing women.
Isn't it funny how music will often bring us back to fraternity in so many different ways?
So many ways.
For me, like when Khaleesi's Milkshake comes on, I immediately go back to my fraternity brothers and think about it.
What were y'all doing in a milkshake, huh?
That's a story for another time. But yeah, I think music plays a huge part in our experiences. That and eating food, right? Like eating food is a big role for us. and just spending that time together. And then obviously the quality time, whether it's a road trip or, a slumber party. I don't know if do we call them slumber parties anymore. I don't know what we call them, right?
Sleepover.
Sleepovers, yeah. Kickbacks, all that kind of stuff. Great things. So, you were a phenomenal student leader. You took command in charge, and I think you did a great job as MPHC president during your tenure here. I'm curious about the thing that you are most proud of or excited about that you were able to accomplish during your tenure.
I will say, number one, we started it wasn't the first one, but the first one in a number of years in PhD week. We did that in the beginning of the year, and it was the first one that we had done in a very long time. So I was really happy to get that going again. And I see on Instagram every year that it's still happening. So I really appreciate that we are able to get that going again. I will also say, Greek Fest? I couldn't think of what it was called. Greek Fest. The year that I was president, if you remember, we had all the Great Hall filled. And what's crazy about that experience, Billy, I don't know if you remember, but y'all, me and Billy worked so hard to get CPC and IFC to come to Greek Fest. And me and you walked around Fraternity Row, knocking on doors during dinner time.
We did.
And that was the first time that I had really been in those neighborhoods, right? And so that was just powerful in itself, to just be knocking on these fraternity doors, sorority doors, and being like, hey, y'all, I'm Amber. I would love for you to come to our event. And they did. A lot of the leadership in IFC and CPC came out and brought folks to come to Greek Fest that year. And I would say over half of the audience were from Greek organizations at Iowa State. And that made me feel so supported in a time where sometimes Black students don't feel supported, especially by other councils. And that was a really big time where I felt like people were coming to support and had fun and enjoyed, and the crowds were going crazy. And of course, Phi Chapter 1, that show, we always do. But it was just such an amazing time to see how big we were able to make that event and how much interest there was throughout all of the Greek councils.
Yeah. I think that's something that we constantly deal with, of nobody wants to be in a space where they don't feel like they're welcome. And I think in today's day and age, I think students are generally concerned about, well, I don't want to take up space that's not mine. And so I think those invitations to other folks to be a part of our events and programs is critical for us to be successful. We have to, if we want people there, we have to be willing to invite them, and not a last minute invite. Because if I remember, we went out weeks in advance to get it on their calendar.
Yeah, with our flyers.
Yes. We were organized, we were prepared, we had the things all together. And I think that's really critical, is when we want people to be a part of something, how do we invite them into our space to make sure they know they're welcome? I think it needs this tension for everybody as we think about what we're getting into. So let's flip that question a little bit. What's the thing that you wish you could have accomplished as MPC president that you weren't quite able to get done?
The Divine Nine. So for people who don't know, the National Pan-Hellenic Council is comprised of 9 historically Black fraternities and sororities. At Iowa State, we had, at the time, I think we had 4, which now I'm actually unsure what the number is. But at the time, we had 4. And I was really excited to help bring in the SG Rose at the time. They were a new chapter that year. And so I was really excited to kind of have a footing and making sure that they had a home here again at Iowa State, because they were being reactivated. But I would have loved to see more organizations present at the time. Although we kind of had some remnants, as you know, in Des Moines and Ames, and people who are kind of still around. We didn't really have strong chapters of every organization. And I think at one point in time in the 90s, I don't know if we had the IOTAs, but I'm pretty sure we had everybody else.
Yep. So you've had 8.
Yeah, we've had 8. And so I would have loved to have 8. But it is what it is. Yeah. it has to do with like who we have in the area and things like that.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize too, is that, the way that NPHC organizations operate and they're structured, there's so much also like national governance
Yes.
to those organizations. So, I mean, I remember, actually it was when you were in school, I think that the Deltas even went on a national moratorium.
Mm-hmm.
And so nationally across the world, we're like, we're not taking any new members.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a challenging situation to navigate. On top of, and I know the Deltas don't accept first-year members, that you require women to get that established Iowa State GPA for a whole year to have that good foundation academically, to understand more about themselves, to make sure they're making that lifelong commitment.
Absolutely.
Just as we saw Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris, that she has shouted out her sorority sisters in Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which I believe may be the first time a presidential or vice presidential candidate has publicly acknowledged their sorority and fraternity as a part of their election. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think she's one of the first. She's definitely one of the first.
Oh, yeah.
And in her moment to shout out all the Divine Nine,
yes,
I thought that was super impactful, because we often end up in this space of rivalry, right? Mm-hmm. And, I know the Deltas and the AKAs have always had their situation with each other.
Yeah.
We'll call it that. But at the end of the day, you're still Black Greeks together. Absolutely. And that is important and that matters. And that's the type of, to me, what she exhibited on that stage, in that speech, in that moment, is what we want from all of our members.
Yeah.
Love your organization. Love your organization. You put your organization first. But also acknowledge that there's a whole bunch of other organizations out here that are right for other people for different reasons. And that's totally okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love Pi Kappa Phi.
Yeah.
But not every man needs to be a Pi Kappa Phi.
Absolutely not. And I felt that way as NPHC president. I felt like I was advocating at all times for all these organizations, not only my own. And I think, I also think sometimes as a NPHC member at schools like Iowa State, where our chapters are so small, like that is what we do most of the time. Like if you think about NPHC week, if you think about any of the, like a lot of the times when we have events, we do group events or joint events, because we really have to work together just because of our small sizes. And so I think that was the beauty of also, of course it's difficult having small chapters, but there's beauty to it, because there's like this almost melting pot with other organizations, because at the end of the day, we all have very similar goals and we have very similar statements of missions and what we want to get done in the community. And so working together is really the best way to get all of that done.
Most definitely. Well, Amber, I am sad because our time has flown by today. So I gotta, I'm getting my cues here. I gotta wrap up our conversation. So I know we're gonna connect again sometime soon and
absolutely
your stories. But I have to finish with 3 questions, because everybody gets these questions.
Okay.
These are important for you. So the first one is, what is a phrase, a line, a quote from a poem, your creed, your anthem, your song, a motto, something from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated that you've taken and you hold with you and carried with you throughout your life?
Fortitude. Fortitude means strength. Fortitude is a symbol in our sorority of giving and receiving. As you might see some of us do this move, and that's just showing the beauty of giving and receiving, and strength of just being a strong Black woman. And every single day I have to bring that strength to the workplace or to my friends or the guy I'm talking to or whatever the case may be. So I would say that fortitude and strength is a really big part of the mission of Delta that I've kind of kept within my whole life. Love that.
Amazing. So as you continue to find ways to grow and to learn, or maybe just for fun, I don't know how much time you have for reading or watching TV or Netflix or binging TV shows these days, but I'm curious about 2 things that you're reading or watching that you want to share with the people.
Yes. Okay. So I have to admit, I still haven't finished Michelle Obama's book, and I've been waiting to listen to the podcast, and I've been waiting to watch the documentary on Netflix until I finish. And so I have like I think at this point I only have like 60 pages left. And so I'm trying to finish that. I will admit that because I literally read hundreds of pages every day, reading isn't really the first thing I like to do when I get, at the end of the long day. But I'm finally finishing that book. The new show that I'm also watching is called Lovecraft Country. It's on HBO. And it's basically the Black Stranger Things. And it's about three black individuals from Chicago who travel to what's called Lovecraft Country. And Lovecraft he was a thriller writer. He's actually writer, and he wrote stories about like these monsters and things like that in this area called Lovecraft Country. And so the show is about these three Black folks in the 50s from Chicago traveling there, trying to find what they're looking for. And it's such an amazing show because it mixes both the thriller of just being Black and like traveling, for example, Black people had what's called a green book, a travel book to basically say you can go here, you shouldn't go to this restaurant, you should drive down this highway, but don't drive on this highway. So that's a thriller in itself. And then also just the scariness of like monsters and aliens and all of that stuff. And so my Black nerd in me is like so excited because I get like both of these really great things, like the historical context and like the weird aliens that are like, attacking these people. So it's a really good show. It's called Lovecraft Country and it's on HBO.
Love that. For me, like a lot of times, because similar busy all the time, reading all the time. I do like to read. I love to give people books. Like it's a big part of who I am. But I find myself on TV just like watching things that I would call like mind numbing, right? Yeah. So like I love Big Brother.
Yeah.
Need to watch this episode because I don't have to remember it. And if I can enjoy it for what it is in the moment, and then I remember some things, but at the end of the day, I can let it go. And so I think it's how can I get that just unwound time to let my mind relax a little bit is really important to me.
Awesome.
All right, last question for you. This is the hardest question of the whole day. So I hope you're ready. What's one thing that brings you joy in life?
Seeing the people in my life happy and successful.
Oh, yes. Well, we know that you are happy and we know that you are successful, and that brings us joy. We're so proud to have you as an alum of our community. I know you represent Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and Phi Chapter both extremely well. Amber, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you today, to hear some of your story here on SFE Stories. I'm glad we could do this, and I hope to connect again soon.
Yes, thank you, Billy, so much.